All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is daily vlog number 90, I think, of 2025. Yeah. So, today, uh, it looks like something very similar to Tabletop is coming back. So, let's let's start at the beginning. So, long ago in the before times when the internet was new, or actually close to like 2012, 2013, there was this thing that happened called the YouTube $1 million Channel Initiative. And basically, YouTube partnered with a bunch of people to create proprietary programming for YouTube. They paid a bunch of different groups money to create their own YouTube channels that would create premium content for YouTube. One of those channels was this little channel called Geek and Sundry, started by Felicia Day, Sherry Bryant, and another person I can never remember her name, but it was three women. And the flagship, initially the flagship of Geek and Sundry, was going to be the latest season of The Guild. I can't remember if it was season 5 or season 6 of The Guild. But The Guild was Felicia Day's web show that she'd been creating for a number of years, basically due to the fact that she had gotten frustrated with Hollywood and the roles that she was getting. And so she wanted to do something fun, and so she created her own web series. And if you've never watched The Guild, it's phenomenal. It is so good. The writing is really funny. Everything about it is just great. So anyway, that was supposed to be the flagship, in addition to some other things like The Vlog, which was Felicia Day's vlog. And Felicia was good friends with a dude named Will Wheaton. You may have heard of him. And she wanted to do something with him, and so he pitched this idea of having celebrities play board games, because he loved playing board games with his family, and anytime he would invite friends over, he'd play board games with them. And that show was called Tabletop, and it literally changed the world. Like, it was by far the most popular show on Geek and Sundry, and that's saying something because The Guild was massively popular. But the other thing that was unique about Tabletop is it actually changed the tabletop board game market. There was this thing called the tabletop effect, where basically any time a game was played on to the tabletop, it would sell out. Like, sales for the game would just jump. And it wouldn't just be in the US. It would be anywhere you could buy the game, it would sell out. They would have to do new printings of these games, to the point where Tabletop in later seasons would actually list... Thank you, phone. Would actually list all the games that were going to play that season, to try and take a little bit of the burden off of retailers and things like that, so they could prep for what was going to be huge influx of sales. It literally changed the economic world. And then Legendary got involved, and they created this proprietary service called Alpha, and screwed over Will Wheaton a few times, and screwed over all the fans of Tabletop, and Tabletop died. There was only ever 4 seasons, but they still exist on YouTube, and they are wonderful. I still go back and watch them to this day. Dropout, which is what evolved from College Humor, has just dropped a trailer for a new series called Parlor Room. And what is Parlor Room? Well, it's hosted by Becca Scott. If you're not familiar with her, she was a host for the Geek and Sundry Twitch channel I don't believe she was one of the original hosts. I think she came in kind of the second wave of hosts as the Geek and Sundry Twitch channel got bigger. And then as Geek and Sundry slowly died, Becca remained with Geek and Sundry for years, hosting various shows for them and doing streams for them. And eventually she started her own company called, I think it's the Good Time Society, which is amazing and wonderful. Um, but yeah, it's going to be hosted by Becca Scott, and the pitch is basically the Dropout crew invite their friends to play board games, and if that sounds familiar to you, it should. As I mentioned before, when Geek and Sundry was really doing well, like the first 2 or 3 years of Geek and Sundry, it was probably some of the greatest times on the internet that have ever existed. And this is not just my like nostalgia glasses. This is 100% like, if you look at how YouTube was doing, YouTube was growing in ways that it had never grown before. New creators were being able to start and do amazing things around that time. Like, that was a YouTube kind of renaissance. In addition to that, geek culture in general was becoming really big. Shortly after Tabletop would get going, we would have Critical Role start, which again changed the world. So it was a really wonderful time, and a lot of people miss that. So Dropout is not pitching this as, hey, it's the return of Tabletop. They're pitching it as their own thing. But it's 100% a return of Tabletop, which I don't have a problem with. Now, there are going to be differences. One of the things that made Tabletop as popular as it was Tabletop was edited in such a way that you could learn how to play the games by watching Tabletop. From the trailer that I saw from Dropout, this does not look like it's going to kind of mimic that style. Basically, what would happen with Tabletop is it would start off with an introduction from Will Wheaton, where he would kind of describe the premise of the game they were going to be playing. And then he would give a very brief overview of the rules so you could follow what was going on. And then as the game played, there would be these inserts that would happen. Whenever something would happen that they needed to explain, there'd be this insert that goes, hey, this is how this works, or anything like that. And then while they were playing, they would cut to interviews of the various players. Like, it's, again, go watch it. It's a brilliantly edited and developed show. As far as I can see from Parlor Room, they're not going to have anything like that. It is literally just going to be them but playing board games. It might be edited for time effectively, so that, you know, a game that takes, you know, 2 hours to play can be condensed into like half an hour, so something like that. Or like a 45-minute game turns into a 15-minute episode. I don't know if they're going to do that or not. There wasn't enough in the trailer to figure that out. But I sincerely doubt they're going to go with the like hyper-produced style that Tabletop was. However, Becca Scott does have experience running the successor to Tabletop. I don't think she ever actually ran a show called Tabletop. She showed up on Tabletop, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I believe Will Wheaton either owned part of the copyright or the trademark on Tabletop or whatever it was, and Will Wheaton took Legendary to court because they did a lot of real bad stuff to him. From a legal standpoint, allegedly. But she did run a very similar show. I think it was called Game the Game. I might be mixing it with another one. So it's not that Becca doesn't have experience in that. However, Dropout's a different thing. As far as I can tell, Parlor Room is not going to be shown on YouTube. It's going to be shown on their proprietary streaming site, which is called Dropout. And everything I have heard about it is it's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing. I've got a few of my players actually subscribe to it, and they absolutely love it. Yeah, we really haven't had something to fill that tabletop shaped hole in years, in nearly a decade at this point. Or it might be a decade now. I'd have to look to see when the last episode of Tabletop aired. So I'm really excited about this. Now, do I think this is going to have the same effect as Tabletop? Absolutely not. First of all, it's not available for free, whereas Tabletop was, so that's going to severely limit its reach. Second of all, as far as I can tell, the purpose of Tabletop was to entertain and to inform. Like, Will Wheaton wanted people going out and playing board games. This looks purely to be entertainment. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying, as much as the premise is kind of similar to Tabletop, it's not going to be Tabletop. Which sucks, because I would love to see someone pick up the mantle of Tabletop and, you know, create another show where a bunch of people get together, learn how to play a board game, teach the audience how to play the board game, and just have fun playing a board game. But that is not technically what this is. But it does look impressive and interesting to me. I'm very, very excited about it. I hope a lot of times what Dropout does is they will put the first episode of a series on YouTube, and then they go, hey, if you want to watch more, come to Dropout, or they'll put clips of it and stuff like that. So I'm hoping I'll be able to at least get a feel for this, and this might be the thing that convinces me to actually go and get a Dropout subscription, which, if I remember correctly, it's like $5 a month or something like that. Like, it's not exorbitantly expensive. Don't quote me on that, by the way. I actually don't know the exact amount. Just $5 sounds right to me. Yeah, but I mean, like I said, I'm excited about this. Oh, the other reason why it's not going to be as big as Tabletop was Will Wheaton got his celebrity friends, like Grant Imahara was on there, and Miracle Laurie, and like, he got famous people to come on, in addition to like nerdy people. These are mostly friends of the people at Dropout, which again are not, these are not unknown people, but the Dropout crowd in general is famous in nerd culture, but you're not going to see them in Hollywood. I guess we can put it that way. But yeah, like, I'm excited about this. I have missed Tabletop for years. I loved, I watched every single episode of Tabletop. I think they did a Kickstarter for season 3 of Tabletop, and it broke fundraising goals. I believe it was the first internet-based TV show that broke $1 million on Kickstarter. Like, it was a huge thing. So yeah, I am all for bringing this idea of, hey, let's bring people together and play board games with them. And Tabletop was not, Geek and Sundry was not the only group that ever did that. Like I said, Becca Scott continued to do it with Geek and Sundry long after Will Wheaton had left. I know SourceFed had a series where they would play games. I think Dropout itself, back when it was College Humor, had their own board game playing thing. So it might be that this has more in common with those older things than, you know, the stuff that I really miss, which was Tabletop. But it's cool. It looks like it's going to be fun. And again, if it's done well, it could really be an amazing, wonderful thing. Dropout in and of itself has been doing wonderful things for geek culture in general. Like Dimension 20 is probably the second best well-known TTRPG live play series that exists. You know, aside from Critical Role and maybe like the Adventure Zone, Dimension 20 is like super, super, super well known, and Brendan Lee Mulligan does amazing things there. So having Dropout kind of bring back board games instead of just TTRPGs, which is really that's really become like the thing. Like there are live plays everywhere. Everybody, especially when Critical Role first started getting really, really big, everyone started to do a live play series. Everybody in the world was trying to do a live play series, and even now, you can go to Twitch any hour, and you can probably find a live play series on there somewhere. So I like to see us kind of reverting back towards the more short term stuff, because it's hard to keep track and keep up with a campaign that can last for years, and where they play for like 4 to 5 hours at a time every week. Like that's really, really rough. Whereas board games last, you know, an hour or two maximum. A lot of them can be played in less than an hour, and they're self-contained. So, yeah, I just thought this is something that people might enjoy. If you hadn't guessed, I'm a fan of the games of board. In fact, Small World, Ticket to Ride, and Smash Up, that one right there, are all board games that I got because they were featured on Tabletop. And Small World and Ticket to Ride, I think were like the first like 2 or 3 episodes of Tabletop featured Small World and then Ticket to Ride, and then Smash Up was a later season. So this is so yeah, like I said, I thought it'd be something you guys would be interested in. I'm really excited about it. I'm interested to see. According to the trailer, it will start April 18th. So that in and of itself, seeing as April starts tomorrow, that's only a little over 2 weeks away. So yeah, we'll find out what it is pretty quickly here. Anyway, it's going to be all for me today. I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.